He was a doctor whose calling was to save lives. Yet behind the closed doors of the military hospital, he did something no physician should ever do. Whenever a wounded soldier was close to recovery, he would secretly reopen the healing wound. Sometimes, he even amputated a leg that could have been saved. To an outsider, his actions would have seemed monstrous. But what made it even more astonishing was that none of the soldiers hated him for it. Instead, every one of them was deeply grateful. They were men who had already witnessed the unimaginable horrors of the battlefield. By worsening their injuries, Mott was giving them something far more precious than a healthy body time. Every extra day spent in the hospital meant one less day in the trenches, one more chance to stay alive. And perhaps, if fortune favored them, a chance never to return to the front at all. Over the past several months, he had helped countless wounded soldiers remain in the hospital by deliberately reopening wounds and inducing infections. Then one evening, another desperate case arrived. A soldier had already lost his left eye in combat. To help him qualify for permanent discharge and finally return home, Mott injected medicine into the man's remaining right eye, creating the appearance of a severe infection that left him seemingly blind in both eyes. The plan worked perfectly. Thanks to Mott's efforts, the soldier was granted permission to leave the army and board a train back to his hometown. But just as he was about to depart, disaster struck. A nurse unexpectedly discovered that the infection in his right eye had been staged. The truth was exposed. The soldier was brought before a military tribunal, accused of attempting to desert the army, and was executed by firing squad before the public. The moment he learned what had happened, Mott was overwhelmed with guilt. He could not stop asking himself the same question. If he had never helped the soldier fake the infection in his remaining eye, would the man still be alive? Kind-hearted by nature, Mott became convinced that the soldier's death was inseparably connected to his own actions. As he struggled with his conscience, several wounded soldiers suddenly surrounded him. One after another, they begged him to help them escape the battlefield as well. Like bidders at an auction, they kept offering higher and higher rewards in exchange for his assistance. Looking at these men, Mott realized that many of them were barely injured at all. They simply wanted to flee the front because they were afraid. Already haunted by the executed soldier's death, Mott found himself sinking into even deeper doubt. For the first time, he questioned whether helping those wounded soldiers had truly been the right thing to do. At that moment, his closest friend appeared before him. The friend had learned the truth from another wounded soldier. That Mott had been secretly helping injured men avoid returning to combat. Confronted by his friend's accusations, Mott quietly explained that all he had ever wanted was to give those battered and broken soldiers a chance to stay alive. His friend, however, was furious. He condemned Mott as a traitor whose actions undermined the interests of the nation. Those words struck Mott deeply. He loved his country just as sincerely as anyone else. Now he found himself trapped between two equally powerful convictions: the compassion he felt for suffering human beings and the duty he owed to his nation. He no longer knew which path was right. As the director of the military hospital, his friend had every obligation to report Mott's actions to the authorities. Yet years of friendship stayed his hand. In the end, he merely gave Mott a final warning: never help another soldier escape the battlefield again. If you do, our friendship will no longer protect you. It was at that very time that a devastating influenza pandemic swept across the world. Still tormented by the moral conflict that had consumed him for so long, Mott volunteered to serve in the Army's influenza quarantine camp, treating soldiers infected with the deadly disease. There, at last, he believed he could devote himself entirely to saving lives. He no longer had to wrestle with the impossible choice between personal compassion and national duty. Every day, he worked tirelessly to save the sick. But despite every effort he made, soldiers continued to die. Night after night, truck after truck carried away the dead from the quarantine camp. As the vehicles disappeared into the darkness, Mott could only watch in silent despair, his heart filled with helplessness. No matter how hard he fought, the number of infected soldiers continued to rise. Days later, exhausted after working without rest, Mott himself contracted influenza. He died in the quarantine camp where he had devoted his final strength to saving others. Until his last breath, one question remained unanswered. Had he been right to help those wounded soldiers escape the battlefield? Or had he been terribly wrong?